Did you ever wonder what's so amazing about grace? Man, the idea of grace, we talk about it, we sing about it, and on one hand, it's like the simplest concept ever, beautifully simple. And on the other hand, there's so much depth to it. And it's just this crazy, shocking, offensive kind of thing. We're talking a lot about grace as we talk about one of Jesus, maybe his most famous parable ever, the parable of the Prodigal Son. We're in the middle of a 3-week series on that, so definitely tune in Sundays, Newbreak online, as we dig into Prodigal Son. Incredible story. Actually, my favorite parable of his about grace. I want to share with you today my second favorite parable of Jesus, all about grace, comes out of Matthew 20. And just to warn you, this one might make you a little squirmy. It might kind of get up in your grill and kind of push on you a little bit. All right, so check it out. It's parable. It happens at harvest season, and it's about a farmer. Jesus always told simple stories we can relate to. So this farmer, this owner, he needs some temporary laborers, some farm hands to come help him for the day. It'd be like if you were to drive to Home Depot, say this week, and you'd see laborers waiting outside, waiting to be hired for the day. So he's trying to hire some day laborers, and he finds some at 6 a.m., start of the workday, and he hires them, puts them to work. Realizes he's going to need more help, and he goes out, hires some more guys at 9 a.m. Realizes he's going to need some more help, and he does the same at noon, does the same at 3 p.m., and he even hires some more at 5 p.m. Only like an hour left in the workday, late afternoon, but he hires a few more farmhands to get him through the day. Then they get to kind of the end of the workday, and he decides to pay the people that were hired last, we'll call them the 5 p.m.ers, he pays them first. And the other guys are watching, and these guys actually get a full day's wage. So if you're the 6 a.m. guy, you're pretty excited right now. You're sitting there thinking, man, if he got a full day's wage and he started that late, what am I going to get, right? Maybe twice that amount. And the owner goes on and he ends up paying everybody the exact same wage, no matter what time of day they started. And you can imagine. These guys, they're totally frustrated, they're upset, they're angry at him, and maybe you're squirming a little bit in your seat right now, and just everything in you is screaming, that's not fair, right? It really challenges our idea of fairness. I guess that depends who you see yourself as in your faith. Are you a 6 a.m.er or more like a 5 p.m.er? Well, these guys push back on the owner and they're all upset. And here's the owner's response, all right? So check out his answer. He says, listen, I'm not being unfair to you, friend. Didn't you agree to work for a day's wage? That's what I paid you. Take your pay and go. I want to give the one who was hired last the same as I gave you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money? Are you envious because I'm generous? Ooh, that's a tough question. Are you envious because he's generous? By the way, I got to remind my kids of this sometimes. Fairness, right? How come they got that? Or, the youngest kid, now he gets things the older kids didn't have. I know that feeling because I was an oldest sibling. And I say, hey, I get to do with my stuff what I want, right? And I was still generous to you. Listen, this is a powerful story all about the radical nature of God's grace, about how he gets to distribute it. That's why his grace is so amazing and even offensive at times. I think about how Jesus lived it out in his own life, the thief on the cross. Jesus dying. Here's a guy who didn't live a life that honored God at all. Yet on his deathbed, hanging on a cross next to Jesus, he says, hey, will you go ahead and let me into heaven today? And he is repentant in it. And Jesus does. That's what his grace is like. And so, what do we do with that? Just two quick takeaways for you. First, got to give up our judgmental attitude, our thinking we know who should and should get what, who deserves what. Who are the 5 p.m.ers in your mind? People that aren't as deserving of grace. We're going to talk about more about that attitude this coming Sunday, so tune in for sure. But got to start working on it. And we got to be willing to trade our anger for our enemies and the people we think don't deserve stuff, and instead turn it into prayer. That's what Jesus says. Don't just tolerate your enemies. He said actually pray for them. So I need to move away from dehumanizing the people that I view as enemies and view them through the lens of God's grace. The other huge key, and you got to do this, especially the longer you're a Christ follower, is stay in touch with our own need for grace, our own need for it. Again, we'll talk about that some more on Sunday, but think about it this way. What if I'm the 5 p.m. person? What if we all are? What if we all are? And to stay more in touch with my own need for grace, I got to have a self-awareness, my own brokenness, my own sin, my own capacity for evil. And I encourage you to study up on grace. Study up on it. There's a great book called What's So Amazing About Grace, Philip Yancey. I've been reading a bunch of stuff by Brennan Manning right now. Check that out. He's got incredible stuff. He's a priest who followed God his whole life and struggled with alcoholism, struggled with it his whole life. And he actually writes this, and I'll leave you with this to keep us in touch with grace. He says, "My life is witness to a vulgar grace, a grace that amazes as it offends, a grace that pays the eager beaver who works all day long the same wages as the grinning drunk who shows up at 10 till 5. It's a grace that raises bloodshot eyes to a dying thief's request, 'Please remember me,' and assures him, 'You bet.' Grace is sufficient, even though we huff and puff with all our might to find something or someone it cannot cover. Grace is enough, God is enough, Jesus is enough."